Shut up and sit down.
Welcome into the HoF Dynasty Podcast, everyone. It's I, your Commissioner, John, once again, and we are here for episode 10, I believe, actually. 10 or 11, but I'll figure that out later. And today we are just doing an NHL review and an NBA review, same with preview for the next week and for the playoffs, because it is almost that time of year. It is February 9th as we record this, and I'm excited for it, and I cannot do it alone, so I brought in Chris as my co-host. You guys know him, so how are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing good. I am doing good. Excited to get into this stuff. We're getting closer and closer to the playoffs. And yeah, that's
it. Definitely, yeah. It definitely feels like we are going to have a much more competitive playoffs this year as well, both NHL and NBA. NHL especially because we did have the trade deadline go down, now that I think about it. It's kind of a just quick discussion. That was one of the crazier trade deadlines we've had between all the sports. Obviously, NFL was pretty crazy this year with Mac going all in, getting guys like Austin Hooper and our three-way trade deal and everything else that went on. But the hockey one was crazy because there was 4 deals on the table, then 2 got withdrawn, and the counters that were going on were absolutely insane, and it made for a lot of good drama between everyone. I gotta say that much.
I have to be honest. That was a lot of decisions to be made, especially for me, because I was involved in 3 of those 4 trades, and I was like, do I go this way or do I go this way? It was tough.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when you were trying to decide what to do with Alex Ovechkin, who I thought was much older than he actually was. But the fact that you and I had a deal, and then you were able to jump in and actually get a counter done with the Kings for Bergeron, was it?
Yeah.
No, it was a winger.
Marchand.
Yeah, that's right, Brad Marchand. Yeah, so the fact that obviously you pulled out of our deal, and then the Avalanche pulled out of their deal with the Nashville Predators, which was one of the smaller deals, but definitely was a really crazy deadline and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I thought, I have to be honest, when they pulled out of that trade, I was like, well, that's good news. And then what happened at the very end, they ended up getting more than what I expected them to get in that trade. I don't remember exactly who they got. I was like, damn.
Yeah, the Kings did a really good job on selling off 2 older pieces and really getting some good return across a lot of the different sports. I mean, obviously sucks for you to lose Matt Ryan because you're a Falcons fan, but I think you'll do perfectly fine with it, and especially when you're going for it, you have to give up a piece that you may enjoy. So
yeah, I was okay with that trade, no doubt about it. And then Toussaint, I think I gave up, and then a pick or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
but I was perfectly okay with what I gave up.
Oh, absolutely, and you can see the repercussions of the trade deadline as we go into, as we finish out this week, which is week. Come on, there it is.
17.
Week 17. I was waiting for the stupid menu to go away. Week 17, and I mean, we'll go through the scores here as they currently sit. Obviously, the week is not over. There are some close ones that still have some chances of flipping. The one that is close that has a very, very small chance of flipping is my Blackhawks taking on Kevin's Predators, and that score is currently 326 to 280 and a hat at 0.5. What we'll do is we'll just kind of go through the scores here and give an MVP for the matchup. And for this one, it's Austin Matthews with his 47.9 points, 4 goals, 3 assists, 3 power play points as well, and just all-around great play out of my center there. Really was the difference maker, because if I didn't have him, it would have been about a 4-point matchup right now and really would matter on this last day.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you at all. He was by far the MVP of this one, and it really wasn't even close.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll actually save your matchup for later down the road because yours is closer, and I want to get some of these other ones out of the way. So why don't we move on to the Dallas Stars taking on the LA Kings with a 90-point difference currently, 239 to 149. We knew the Kings were going to end up falling off the table because of the fact, like we just discussed, they did trade off a couple of their pieces, their bigger pieces especially, in this trade deadline. So what do you think about this one?
Well, I knew they would fall off, but I did not expect them to fall off this much. I mean, this was a big fall, especially this week. I mean, in particular. Did you expect them to fall off this much? And I'll give MVP after you answer that question.
I really didn't. I mean, they had 7 less starts, but for them to drop all the way from a over 200 points per matchup score down to 149, that's a brutal drop-off. Marchand and Bergeron were definitely two of their bigger pieces, but I didn't expect a just fall off the face of the earth type of comeback for them.
Yeah, I have to pretty much agree with what you said. But for me, I think the MVP would be, and this one isn't really even close either, it's Sebastian Aho. I don't even know if I pronounced that right, but he had 30.3 points.
Yeah, it's Aho, but
close.
You got the harder part is, it is a weird one. But 4 goals, 2 assists, only 2 penalty minutes, which is good. And he was not as many faceoffs, but he was able to be an offensive juggernaut this week. And 30 points, it's really didn't matter too much here, but still the MVP of this matchup. So why don't you take the next one with the Wild and the Maple Leafs in a huge, huge upset this week?
Yeah, this was no doubtly an upset. The Toronto Maple Leafs pulled off the 283.8 point up to Minnesota Wild's 214.4. This one I did not expect whatsoever. I mean, this was really just, I don't even know how to describe it because I don't think I've seen the Maple Leafs play this good all year long. I mean, besides maybe one matchup earlier in the year. But I can't. This one was shocking, and I think it changes the dynamic of that last spot pretty big.
It really does, because the Wild are currently in a good spot to make the playoffs, but this one definitely keeps them closer to the pack, and we'll dig into the playoff matchups and the not predictions, but projections at this point, who's in the hunt, who's not. But the Wild surprisingly lost. I mean, they had 8 less starts, but it's almost a 70-point difference right now, and for them to get 10 points per player with those starts, I highly doubt it. It's not something that I would have seen happening. It blows my mind that the Maple Leafs are in the top half of scoring this week when they've been one of the harder teams to produce offensively. So
yeah, it's just one of them odd weeks for them, I think, more than anything. And the Wild, this isn't really. They're playing about the way they usually have been, or the way they have been for the past month or so. They haven't been great, but they haven't been bad, so to speak. I mean, I guess they're on the lower end of average. Let's put it that way. For half of the league, that's the easy way to put it. But as far as the MVP goes, for me, this one's pretty easy again. It's John Tavares. I cannot pronounce
Tavares.
Yeah, I cannot.
John Tavares.
Wow.
Which is funny because this will be the first one, obviously, with the new way we're doing this, the first MVP to be on the losing side of it. But 43.1 points, whereas the Toronto Maple Leafs didn't have anyone cross over 30. But they just had great performances throughout. Trocheck and Fiala with 27 points each. David Krejci with 17, Tyler Seguin with 24. Just overall great play versus the Wild, who were all over the place with negative points, 0 points, and obviously John Tavares getting the MVP at 43.
Yeah, I mean, usually you would not give it to the losing team, but I mean, when you have one team that doesn't even have a 30-point guy, and then you have one it's over 40, I have to give it to them on that one. And for talking about the Wild and their negative points, I know that feeling. I've had weeks that are very, especially the first half of the season, that are very ugly. That I've had 3 or 4 guys in the negatives, some double-digit negatives, which really suck.
Yeah, that's a hard swing. I mean, even if they were to get 5 points in the positive, I mean, that's a 20-point swing, really. It's tough when they're that low, below zero.
Yeah, it makes it really hard to come back.
Oh, absolutely. So let's move on to the last blowout of the week, really, and that's between the New York Rangers and the Colorado Avalanche. And as of right now, it's the Colorado Avalanche at 290 to the New York Rangers 202. There's not much to say. I've got to say the Rangers have definitely improved versus last year, even though their record won't show it. They've played much better point total-wise, but, I mean, what do you have to say about this one, Chris? I don't think there's a lot.
No, there's really not. I mean, this is about what I would have expected. I mean, the Rangers had about 10 less starts, but I don't even think that would have, had they had those 10 extra starts, it would have been closer, obviously, but it wouldn't have. The Avalanche were going to win this game. They were going to win it a month ago. They were going to win it last week. They were winning it now. There's no change. This was never expected to go the Rangers' way.
Right, and obviously, the MVP of this matchup is going to be Patrice Bergeron, barring anything crazy from Nathan McKinnon, but obviously, Keith decided that Bergeron was his guy, the guy that he needed to help supplant the center position for his championship run, and he's made his effects already known in this Colorado Avalanche offense. So it was a good move for the Avalanche. I don't remember what he gave up, but obviously Bergeron was the right guy to go after, and he's already making a strong case for the MVP of the team.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much do have to give that to him this week, and it's crazy that the first week he's on the team and he's already their best player's week. It's pretty wild.
So why don't we move on over to yours between the Anaheim Mighty Ducks and the Vegas Golden Knights? I'll let you take over for this one, considering it's your matchup. So, how are you feeling? I mean, right now it's the Ducks with 6 players left, and you have 2, and you are up by 25 points.
This one's hard. This one feels like it's going to be like the matchup that I had with the Wild about 2 months ago, that it came down to 0.1 points. I feel like that this is going to come down to that, but this matchup's so important though, because I think, which we'll get into playoffs a little later, this is seeding on the line to a certain extent. I mean, it's not. I know the Ducks are 2 games ahead of my Knights, but if I win this matchup, that makes a difference if the Ducks lose again. But back to the matchup itself. I don't even know what to say, because I don't know how to feel about this matchup, because 6 players, but I was 2 minutes late last night picking up another player.
Ooh, yeah, and it's funny is I tried picking up one of the guys I attempted to pick up last night was where did he go? Andre Burakovsky, for the left winger for Colorado. I attempted to pick him up. I wanted to try and, because I didn't know how close it was going to be, and I went to bed early last night since I worked, but that was one of the guys that I attempted to pick up. Unfortunately, the Mighty Ducks bid more than me, because it wasn't super important for me to get him, but it was just a stream that I thought would play out, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing is that his big guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have already played.
Yeah.
For today, so his big boom guys aren't really there. Obviously, Jeff Carter, Andre Burakovsky, Zach Parise, and I don't know who else is left for today. Oh, Connor Hellebuyck as a goal. He's got a goalie left, so really, it's going to be a tough comeback for the Ducks. They need a little bit of a miracle to do it, considering that they don't have their big guys there. Mark Schifele is a decent one, especially against Chicago, but Chicago's gotten great goalie play as of these last few weeks. I mean, hell, last few months they've been playing outstanding between Corey Crawford and Robin Lehner. So I think this one's going to fall your way, which will make a big difference.
Yeah. This is the most important game besides your Blackhawks and Predators matchup, but I think this was the second most important game, and you could argue the first most important game either way. And for it to be this close is pretty crazy. I don't think we've had one this close since about a month.
It's been a while.
It's been about a month, probably. It feels like. But
absolutely.
But anyway, yeah, I don't. But as far as the general matchup goes, I don't feel like either one of us had really awesome play. I feel like my defensemen have played pretty well, and I would probably give the MVP to Colton Pierco. I can't even really say the name, but
Parriaco.
Yeah.
Parriaco, yeah.
You're, for some reason, so much better at me at saying these names.
Just listening to a lot of sports radio does that. I hear it, and it'd be between either him or Patrick Laine from Winnipeg for the Mighty Ducks. He does play tonight, so that's one that I missed. That he has a good chance of taking that MVP depending on how he plays tonight.
Yeah, if you give it to the most points, he's probably gonna take over that MVP spot. But yeah, I mean it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a close one.
I'd probably still give it to Parriaco though, just because of the fact that obviously 32 points out of a defender is much harder than say 32 points or 35 points out of a right or left winger, considering we are skewed a little bit towards the offensive production. So I would give it to Colton still at this point because of the way he performed as a defenseman.
Yeah. I would pretty much side with you on that. But, I mean, as far as the actual matchup goes, I think it's pretty important that I have two guys left. If I had no guys, I feel like the Ducks would get that win. But the fact that I have two guys, and if they perform if they give me even 5 points apiece, I feel like I'll be okay. I mean, I feel like I might be able to slide by this week.
Right, I agree with that. So why don't we look at next week and kind of go through some of the ones. There's not too many important matchups. Obviously, I will take on Steve and his Maple Leafs in Chicago. The Stars take on the Mighty Ducks. I don't expect that one to be too much of a challenge for Jared at this point. We have the LA Kings taking on the Minnesota Wild, which is a game that matters, but it's not something flashy. You have your Golden Knights, Chris, taking on the New York Rangers. You better win that one. And then the biggest game of them all is going to be the Predators versus the Avalanche. Just because these two teams are in the same division. It's a division rivalry. And you have as I wait for Fantrax to load here for a second.
I mean, this is an important matchup. I mean,
yeah, because with the Avalanche, let's see. With the Avalanche winning and the Preds losing, that knocks the Predators down to 11-6 and the Avalanche up to 12-5. So this could bring the Predators obviously need the win against the Avalanche next week to try and stay close, try and get that higher seed at this point.
Yeah, because it's definitely, I have to say, it's definitely ideal to have that second seed so you can get that bye week.
Yeah, and
it helps.
We'll see what happens. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the Avalanche have the advantage when it comes to seeding already. We'll have to take a look at that for next week's show. But I really like what the Preds have done this year. It's been really exciting. So
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've turned it around, made 360 in just 1 year. Kind of like what they did in baseball, except for I think this one's a little more unique. His team wasn't as, I'm not gonna say it's bad, but his team was worse.
Can you take our chair outside, please?
It was in baseball.
Oh, absolutely. So why don't we get into the playoff picture? Obviously, if it plays out the way we expect it, with the Mighty Ducks taking the loss versus your Golden Knights, I would have the number 1 seed as the mighty Chicago Blackhawks. The Mighty Ducks would be at number 2. And the Avalanche currently sit in 3rd. And this is because of the 2 wins over your Golden Knights in the head-to-head matchups. Unfortunately, you will not have a way of getting over that hump. So you are locked in as the number 4 seed, Chris.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing because the Nashville Predators did lose to you twice, and you guys still do face off one more time, but the Preds will be locked in probably at that 5th spot unless something happens crazily between the next few matchups. Regardless of how you two play, you do have the tiebreaker over him when it comes to higher seeding. Unless obviously the records change And then currently in 6th is the Minnesota Wild. Now, do you have anything to say about these 6 teams before we get to teams still in the hunt?
Well, at this point, I think it's super close between everyone. So, I mean, next week the Predators and Avalanche play. If the Predators win, I jump 3. I mean, so that's really how close it is. It's gonna flip. It may flip flop again in 2 weeks. So, I mean, besides that, I don't really have too much to say. It's just so close between everybody. Even you, I think you're going to have a little bit of an advantage over the Mighty Ducks and Avalanche in the upcoming weeks, just because you have, I think, a 2-game lead over the Avalanche, and you're about to have a 1-game lead, hopefully 1-game lead over the Ducks.
Well, and I'll be seated in one of the top 2 spots because of the divisions. But, yeah, it helps. The fact that this way played out the way it did. Obviously, the tiebreaker doesn't come into play unless we have the same record between myself and the Mighty Ducks. But the Mighty Ducks are still on my tail.
Yep.
And I'm actually looking right now to see if we play each other. I play the Leafs, the Wild.
I don't think y'all do.
The Kings. And I believe week 21 is our last week, which would then I take on the Colorado Avalanche. So
that'll be important.
That's going to be a very important matchup. And in that same week, the Predators take on the Mighty Ducks in week 21. So, but we won't dive into that too much because of that's so far out.
Yeah.
But some teams still in the hunt are the Kings, Maple Leafs, and Stars, with them being 1, 2, and 2 respectively. The only team that has been eliminated is the New York Rangers because they have yet to put out a win this year. Now,
yeah.
I have a quick question for you, Chris.
Yeah.
Out of these 3 teams, who do you think has the easiest chance of taking that Minnesota Wild spot?
Oh, that's tough. I would probably, just based off mainly this week's performance, I would have to give it to the Maple Leafs. The reason I know the Kings have a 1 or 2 game advantage over the Leafs and Stars, but their team's just regressed so much since he's made those trades between Ovenchek and the Marchand and the last trade he made for Bordron or whoever it was.
Patrice Bergeron.
That killed his team. And I don't think he may lose out. I mean, unless he plays the Rangers, he may lose out. And honestly, he may lose that game just based off of how he's played since then. And the Stars, they just seem. It's going to be between the Stars and Maple Leafs. I think these 2 teams are very, very identical.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to say neither one of them are that awesome about setting up their lineups. So, or at least from the way I take it, just looking week to week, it doesn't seem like it. So it's really going to come down to who happens to set their lineup one week versus not.
Right,
so
and a little bit of puck luck.
Yeah, it's going to take a little luck, but I think it's going to be more if one of them happens to set up their lineup or not. So just based off this week's performance, I'm going to give it to the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, the Minnesota Wild haven't been as spectacular as they would have hoped, but the Maple Leafs definitely have a chance with the way their team's been performing. Even though they are the second to lowest scoring team on the year.
Yeah. I'm looking at the schedule right now. Is that are you agreeing with me with the Maple Leafs or?
I think I'd still have to stick with the Wild overall, even though they.
I was just picking between the 3 teams. I think it'll probably be the Wild, but if it had to be another team, it would be the Maple Leafs.
I agree with that. They have some chances.
Then again, their schedule's hell. I mean, their schedule is rough. They play my Golden Knights, and then they play the Predators. They play, let's see, and then they play your Blackhawks.
Oh, that's a brutal way to
They're
end.
They're not gonna get that. Oh, and then they play the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
No.
Wait, for the Maple Leafs? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're gonna.
Yeah, never mind. That's oof.
I'm gonna stay with the Wild. It's just it's impossible to imagine the Maple Leafs. Even maybe they might win another game, but that'll be it.
Right. it'll be a miracle at that point.
Yeah.
So
they're pretty much out.
Right, absolutely, of course. I mean, that's not a way you want to see the schedule kind of line up for you on the last few weeks. But let's move on over to the NBA at this point. Let's move over to the hardwood. And this was just a week of blowouts. I'm not looking to spend a lot of time on these. We'll start with the Pelicans losing to my Mavericks. Kevin put up a hell of a fight for a lot of the week, but this one was just so one-sided in almost every category. As I wait for the score to pull up.
Yeah, that's was a rough week for basketball. I mean,
the closest category between myself and Kevin were the ratio stats with field goal percentage and free throw percentage, which could still swing one way or another tonight. So we may see this score drop a little bit. But the counting stats where it really matters were just so far and away so different. So
Steals
my Mavericks should move on up.
Steals could change.
Oh yeah.
So honestly, with how many players y'all have left, this could flip-flop. It's unlikely. Kevin would have to get a lot of luck, with the field goal percentage, the free throw percentage, and steals. But this could end up being a win for him, really.
Well, no, because he'd have to have he's got field goal. The only two that he could really take would be free throw and steals, which would put him at. The worst I can be is 5-4-0 at this week, but
I forgot it. Yeah, I didn't realize he has the field goal percentage. But if he didn't, he would have got the win. But
right.
But yeah. In that case, you're definitely gonna win.
I'll take the winning week. I hope it sticks more on the higher side of the 7-2 or 6-3. But the Pelicans they didn't seem to show up this week. Thomas Satoransky hasn't played very well, and they've had. I think the schedule hurt him a lot because the Pelicans haven't been this bad in a while.
Yeah. I definitely agree with it. This has been a really rough week for them, which I can't say that. This has been a really rough week for me, too. But moving on to another rough matchup, unless you had anything else to say.
No, go right ahead, Chris.
Between the Nuggets and Knicks, I was kind of shocked about this one. The Knicks had you're going to end up having about 8 less starts than the Nuggets, but this one was another one that really wasn't that close. The Nuggets had nearly every category. Blocks are within one for Vic's Knicks. But other than that, this one's over.
Yeah, and what really hurt the Knicks, though, was obviously injuries. Guys like Patrick Beverley, Russell Westbrook had missed some time, I believe, this week. They have not been the healthiest team as of late, so it's definitely hurt their counting stats for sure.
Absolutely.
But the Nuggets are a great team. That's nothing to take away from them. They've played absolutely stellar basketball this last while, so I'm excited to see what their team can do. Obviously, they are looking to make a push against the Raptors, which will be tough to do after they dominated your Hawks this week. 8-1 currently at this point, going into the last few games of the night. And I don't know if you have anything you really want to say about this, but you guys were close early in the week. I'll give you that much. You were competitive.
Yeah, but now it's absolutely miserable right now. No, there's really not a whole lot that I can say about this. But other than the fact that I've had quite a few injuries this week, I've had like 4 or 5 guys injured. I don't know. I think I posted a picture of how many I had.
Yeah, you did.
It was rough. Let's see, I had Gordon injured, I had Young injured, I had Millsap, D'Angelo Russell switching teams, so he didn't play. Draymond Green, I had Andrew Wiggins, and then Cam Reddish. But that's half of my team.
Yeah, part of your team got moved, so their schedules changed in terms of playing games and not being there for games and stuff like that. So that made a big difference. Your team took a weird hit this week just with that itself.
Other than that, he pretty much doubled me on every stat except for 3-pointers.
Yeah, which you guys were tied for a while there, and then he just decided he finally pushed on the gas, and they just took that one over from you.
Yeah, I think I don't remember exactly, but I looked one night and it was tied, and then the next night he was up by 15. I was like,
right.
That's just how good this team is, though.
That's what happens when you have like Damian Lillard and James Harden, when they can just put up 10 threes anytime they want, even though he's got Ben Simmons who doesn't ever shoot threes. he's got guys that can put him up in bunches, so it's tough to take him down. Yeah. But one that was kind of a surprise to me is, well, not a surprise, but the Timberwolves have played pretty well as of late, and they're taking down the Bucks 6-3 right now. I expect this to hold. The Bucks just are not very good. They are a fairly young team, and he is rebuilding it. He's made some decent moves this year. But the Timberwolves played really well and put up some decent stats. In any other matchup, they probably would have been a similar score, if not a maybe 5-4 or 4-5. It's not like they would have been dominated by many other matchups.
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot better team than they looked like they were a month and a half ago. I mean, this team looked really rough, and I don't remember, they were down. I mean, they were at one point they were doing really good, and then they got down, and then now they're starting to get back into it, or however you want to word that. But other than that, I don't see anything changing either. Maybe the steals. Bucks are down by 4. They could potentially get 4 steals. I doubt it. But other than that, there's not too much to say about this one.
Oh, of course. And then we'll move on to the last one, which is the Lakers and the Bulls. The Lakers currently winning 5-4. The Bulls, I mean, not a great team. They've been injured, but the Lakers haven't been stellar either. Neither team in triple digits for three-pointers. None of them have even broken 70. And you can hear my dogs barking in the background because, God forbid, people walk by the house. But the crazy thing is the Bulls only have 289 points scored on the week right now. And I know they set their lineup this week, and part of it has been injuries, but they are just not a great team, and they need a bit of a rebuild there, and I expect that to happen this year. So we'll see what happens, but the Lakers I don't feel are super great, even though they made a move for Klay Thompson, who will be more of a 2021 type move. So we'll see what happens with those.
Well, and he traded Chris Paul away too, I believe. So
yeah, he did. But Chris Paul is what, 35?
Yeah. He traded them to Jared because I said I would counter, but I forgot to counter, so I ended up not getting my counter in time. And of course,
he's 34 going on 35.
They
did call you out.
I don't blame him for that though, because he's not in a lot better shape than the Bulls are. And talking about the Bulls, I think the most shocking thing about this matchup though was he only had 22 3-pointers made. 22.
Yeah, that's
extraordinarily low.
He has a lot of guys that just are not 3-point shooters, so I'm not terribly surprised. But even then, the way that the NBA game is played now, 22 is, I mean, you figure 7 days a week, it's only 3 per day. 2 to 3 per day, and that's, I mean, we play 11 guys a night, so that's really, really low, even on attempts, I assume.
I mean, 40. I think 40 is low. 22 is low.
Right.
Like, oh my God, low.
I feel like I could go make 22 3-pointers just in a gym all by myself in 7 days. I mean, hopefully I could.
Yeah,
but
I don't know if I could or not. I mean, hopefully, but who knows,
Right? I mean, who knows, but so let's go into next week's matchup, which is a 2-week week for us. Due to the NBA All-Star Game and All-Star Weekend at the end of next week. So we will run from the 10th all the way till the 23rd of February, that'll be our Week 17. And we have some matchups that could be fairly interesting. First, we'll start with my Mavericks taking on Vic's Knicks. That should be a pretty good one. Not too much in terms of playoff projection there, just because of the fact, obviously, different divisions. Fairly similar records, but it's obviously I know who you're rooting for in that matchup to help bring me down. And then we have the Bulls taking on your Hawks, which will be that's a good one for you to try and pile up some wins.
Yeah.
And then the last one that really doesn't have too much to go into it is the Bucks facing the Pelicans. I expect the Pelicans to come out on top on that one, and then I'll leave the last two for you since these ones are fairly interesting for the playoff picture.
Yeah. Lakers facing the Timberwolves. I think this one's pretty important. As far as playoff picture goes, I'm not sure actually. Oh, but well, we have it up here, so
yep.
I don't need to look. With the Lakers on the outside looking in, I'm not sure. They're 4 wins out, so they need some help, and this could be a good week for them to gain some ground on the Timberwolves. I don't think they will, just because their team's not too much better than the Timberwolves, but we'll see as far as that goes. And then the Raptors facing the Nuggets, arguably one. I say this. You can say this is important, but I think Jared's so far ahead. How many games ahead is he? He's like 19 or 20 games ahead. 13. Okay, not as big as I thought. So it is a little more important than I was thinking it was. But I think his team's so good. Right now he's on a really, really hot streak. Almost to the stat line. So I don't see this one being that close. But if somehow he can get a win or a 6-3 win, he could start gaining some ground. Other than that, I don't see this one mattering too much.
It's important to me just because of the fact that to see where these two teams really play out, because these two teams faced off in the championship last year, and they'll obviously most likely be back there again. It's going to be a harder road for the Nuggets, of course, because they'll have to play in the wild card round. But this will be also just kind of fun to see how these two teams line up, especially since we have the deadline coming up on February 13th.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if the Nuggets are able to find a way to try and bring in some bigger pieces, see if they can make their way closer to the Raptors, and kind of a litmus test to see how close these two teams play. Especially in a 2-week matchup, you kind of get a bigger sample size.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that too. But I think the Pelicans and Bucks are. It's not important for the Bucks, obviously, but the Pelicans, if they could get a big enough win, like a 6-3, 7-2 win, they could start gaining some ground as well and start biting into that Timberwolves lead for that 6th spot.
Yeah, so since you mentioned the playoffs, let's kind of look at that real quick. We have the Raptors at 1, my Mavericks at 2 currently. The Nuggets come in at 3 with the first wild card, I guess you want to call it, spot. Then the Knicks at 4, your Hawks at 5, and the Timberwolves at 6. Kind of like we've mentioned, the Lakers are 4 wins out, but they are still in the hunt. And the Pelicans are 7 wins out behind the Timberwolves going off of that. So the Pelicans definitely need a big win over the Bucks, which is a good chance for them to do it. But then obviously you have the Lakers taking on the Timberwolves in that direct spot for the 6th seed.
Well, I think that they probably, for the Pelicans, if they could get, they don't need to get an 8-1 win. I mean, because it's not over. We still have plenty of weeks, but they need to start fighting at the lead instead of making it 7 wins out by the time the end of the week comes. They need to be 4 or 5 wins out. They can start gaining some ground there, because I think this Lakers and Timberwolves matchup is going to be really close. So if it's 4-5, either way, the Pelicans could get a 6-3, 7-2 win, and then that's going to help them.
Well, and the Pelicans have an interesting road ahead of them, because obviously, like we were saying, they've got the Bucks this week coming up. Yeah. Then they take on your Atlanta Hawks in Week 19. Week 20, they face the Nuggets. And then Week 21, the final week of the season, they will take on the Toronto Raptors. So they've got an uphill battle at this point. But 4 games out is nothing. 7 for them. 7 games out really isn't much, just because depending on what the Timberwolves do, and obviously the Lakers aren't a team that aren't super high competitors in this league as well, just because they are trying to build for next year. They are not a team that is super scary if they had to, in terms of trying to pass them.
Right, yeah, absolutely. But I didn't realize the Pelicans' schedule was that rough. They're going to have to get some huge wins the next 2 weeks.
Oh, of course. I mean, especially this Bucks matchup is huge for them if they want to try and jump into that 6th seed pretty quickly.
And see, and that's why I was saying 6-3. They need more like 8-1
Mm-hmm.
to get that one done. But yeah, I don't see that happening. I can see the Timberwolves holding on to that spot.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers are a good chance for it as well. I don't know what their schedule is, but they've got the Knicks in the last week of the season, which is obviously going to be tough for them because the Knicks are still talented as long as they're healthy. The Lakers do get the Bucks the week before that, and then week 19, the Lakers have my Mavericks. So it's an uphill battle. The Timberwolves don't have an easy road either. Nobody really does because NBA is very, very close for all of us.
Yeah.
But it really is going to come down to who just kind of gets that extra lucky win here and there into those final 4 weeks.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't disagree with you.
I think I'm going to take... I don't know. I want to take the Pelicans. I think they might make a move, but overall, I'm going to give the highest percentage to the Timberwolves just because they currently hold the spot and nobody has an easy schedule going forward.
Yeah. But the Pelicans have the toughest of the three. I can't imagine them getting it when they face my Hawks, the Nuggets, and the Raptors because they're going to be lucky to get 6 wins out of those 3 weeks. Probably. Well, I'll say 8 wins because they might make it close with me, but they're not going to make it close with the Nuggets or Raptors.
Right, and it is a very, very hard road, but we'll see what happens with the other ones. The fact that we have a close race between 6, 7, and 8 is definitely a lot of fun at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, that's all we've got for tonight. The Bulls and Bucks have been eliminated, just to kind of mention that. Those two teams are so far and away out, so obviously it looks like I believe the Bucks will have the number 1 seed as I pull up the standings. Actually, we've got a race for the number 1 seed. I mean, the Bulls have 44 wins, the Bucks with 34, so we'll see who gets that first overall pick in the 2020 draft. But most likely it's going to go to the Bucks.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but
that's about it.
A little bit of a chance. You never know, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, neither of these teams is great. Something could happen where one team just absolutely gets dominated, the other doesn't, maybe loses 3-6 instead of 8-1. There's a lot of time left.
Right, absolutely.
But do you have anything else to tack on for this?
No, I'm good. I think we covered everything pretty well.
Yeah, and so we'll have this out tonight, and I will be recording later on tonight the team preview for the New York Yankees, and that'll be up sometime this week. We will start pushing those out. I'm really excited to kind of do it, and we'll be going through how they did last year. We'll kind of be going through rosters, what we think of their spots, whether it's obviously I plan on having Kevin in with me for the Yankees preview, and I will also be giving Pacoda projections. If you guys haven't heard it, it's from Baseball Prospectus. They do the projections for each player and the team wins for each team, but I will be taking the projections from Baseball Prospectus and adding them up into a total team war just to kind of see how everyone plays out between the league. Obviously, defense matters a lot for war, and we don't use it, but it's just kind of something fun to see. So, but we'll have those out, and I'm excited for baseball season. I'm excited for the playoffs coming up, so just good luck to everyone, and this next long week of NBA should definitely be a hell of a ride.
Yep, we'll see what happens. Should be fun.
All right. See you guys later, and I'm excited to see what happens. So take it easy.